The Interstellar Academy floated in the darkness of space like a city made of light. It was a massive station, bigger than most moons, built in orbit around a planet that belonged to no one. Species from across the galaxy sent their young here to learn, to grow, and to understand each other. At least, that was the idea. Danny Carter stood at the window of his small dormitory room and watched a transport ship drift past. The ship carried students from the Empire, tall beings with skin and 4 arms who stood nearly 8 feet tall. Danny was 5'9". He had brown hair, brown eyes, and a face that most people forgot 5 minutes after meeting him. He was 17 years old and he was very far from home. Earth had joined the Galactic Consortium 3 years ago. It had been a shock to everyone on the planet when the first alien ships appeared in the sky. Some people panicked. Some people celebrated. Most people just tried to figure out what it meant for their lives. For Danny, it meant an opportunity. The consortium offered scholarships to young humans who showed promise. Danny had good grades and no future waiting for him back in Detroit, so he applied. He never expected to actually get in. Now he was here, one of only 12 human students in a school of thousands. The aliens mostly ignored them. Humans were new, unknown, and not very impressive by galactic standards. They were stronger, they could read minds, they could survive in the vacuum of space without suits. Humans were just humans, soft, short-lived, and unremarkable. Danny did not mind being ignored. He had spent most of his life being ignored, and he had learned that there were advantages to it. People who ignored you did not bother you. People who forgot you existed did not cause you problems. He went to his classes, did his work, and kept his head down. It was a strategy that had kept him alive in Detroit, and it worked just as well in space. His only real friend was another human student named, was 16, a year younger than Danny, but he acted like he was older. He was smart in a way that made teachers notice him. He could solve math problems that made alien professors blink in surprise. He understood engineering concepts that took other students months to grasp. Was the kind of person who was going places, and everyone knew it. They had met during their first week at the academy. Danny had been sitting alone in the cafeteria, trying to figure out which of the strange foods in front of him was safe for human digestion, when sat down across from him with a big smile. "You look lost," had said. "I am lost," Danny had replied. Had laughed and pointed at a dish that looked like purple noodles. "That one is safe. Tastes kind of like chicken. Avoid the green stuff, though. It will make you see colors for 3 days." They had been friends ever since. Was everything Danny was not. He was loud, friendly, and impossible to ignore. He made friends with alien students easily, charming them with his quick mind and easy laugh. Some of them even seemed to like him, which was rare. They did not like anyone who was not. But lately, Danny had noticed something that worried him. They had started watching. The hegemony was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They were a reptilian species, cold-blooded in more ways than one. Their empire had been at cold war with 3 other species for decades, and they were always looking for advantages. They recruited aggressively, especially from the academy. Young minds with useful skills were valuable to them. Danny had seen the officers standing in the corridors, their yellow eyes following as he walked to class. He had noticed them sitting in the observation gallery during engineering demonstrations. They never approached him directly. They just watched. "You need to be careful," Danny told one evening as they walked back to their dormitory. Shrugged. "Careful of what?" They are watching you." Laughed. "They watch everyone. It does not mean anything. The consortium would never let them do anything on neutral ground. There are rules." Danny did not laugh. He had grown up in a place where rules meant nothing if the people breaking them were stronger than the people enforcing them. He had seen what happened when powerful people decided they wanted something from someone who could not fight back. "Just be careful," Danny said again. Patted him on the shoulder. "You worry too much, Danny. This is not Detroit. Things are different here." Danny wanted to believe him. He really did. But that night, he lay awake in his narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. The academy was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be neutral territory where all species were equal and protected. But Danny had never been anywhere that was truly safe. He had learned long ago that safety was an illusion. The only real protection was being ready for when things went wrong. He thought about his life before the academy, growing up in a neighborhood where violence was common and kindness was rare, learning to fight because the alternative was to be a victim. He was not big, he was not strong, but he had learned that size and strength were not everything. He had learned that the most dangerous thing in any fight was not the biggest opponent, but the one who refused to stop. His mother had once told him about honey badgers. They were small animals, she said, but they fought lions and won. They did not know how to quit. They did not understand the concept of giving up. When something threatened them, they attacked it with everything they had, and they kept attacking until the threat was gone or they were dead. "You are like that," his mother had said, touching his face with her rough hands. "You have that same fire in you. Do not ever let anyone put it out." Danny closed his eyes and tried to sleep. He did not know that tomorrow everything would change. He did not know that they had already made their decision about. He did not know that rules meant nothing to those with power. But when the moment came, he would be ready. Because that was what honey badgers did. The classroom was quiet except for the soft voice of Professor. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to look through you rather than at you. She was teaching interstellar navigation, explaining how ships moved between star systems using gravity wells and jump points. It was complicated material, but was following along easily, his stylus moving across his tablet as he took notes. Danny sat in the back of the room as he always did. He liked having a wall behind him and a clear view of the door. Old habits from Detroit. The classroom held about 40 students from a dozen different species. Towered in the back rows, their forearms folded across their massive chests. Sat near the front, their insect-like bodies clicking softly as they processed information. A few students sat apart from everyone else, their telepathic abilities making them uncomfortable in crowds. It was a normal day, nothing special, nothing different. Then the door opened. 4 soldiers walked in. They wore the black armor of the hegemony military, and they carried weapons on their belts. Their yellow eyes scanned the room with cold purpose. Behind them came a 5th, taller than the others, with silver markings on his scales that indicated high rank. "Commander." Professor stopped speaking. Her large eyes widened with surprise and something that looked like fear. "Commander, this is a classroom. You cannot simply walk in here without permission from the Academy administration." Ignored her. His eyes moved across the room until they found what they were looking for. "Yes," said. His voice was deep and cold, filtered through a translator device that made it sound mechanical. "Human, you are under arrest for information crimes against the hegemony. You will come with us." His face went pale. "What? I have not done anything. There must be some mistake." Pulled a small device from his belt and held it up. "I have documentation here, legal authority. You are wanted for questioning regarding stolen military data. Stand up and come with us now, or we will use force." Professor stepped forward, her thin hands raised. "Commander, please. This is neutral territory. The Academy has rules about this kind of thing. You need to contact the administration and follow proper procedures." Looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "The hegemony does not need permission from this academy to collect criminals. Our authority supersedes your rules. Now step aside or you will be arrested as well." Stepped aside. The other students in the classroom sat frozen. Despite their size and strength, looked at their desks. Stared straight ahead, their telepathic minds carefully closed. Clicked nervously but did not move. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted to make enemies of the 2 soldiers moved forward and grabbed by the arms. He struggled, trying to pull away, but they were too strong. They lifted him from his seat like he weighed nothing. "Help me!" shouted. His eyes swept across the classroom, looking at the faces of his classmates, the aliens he had been friendly with, the people he had laughed with and studied with. "Someone help me! This is not right. I did not do anything." No one moved. Danny stood up. The movement was so quiet that most of the room did not notice at first. He just rose from his seat in the back corner, his face calm, his brown eyes fixed on Commander. He did not say anything. He just stood there. Noticed him. The Commander turned his yellow eyes toward Danny and studied him for a moment. What he saw was a small human teenager, unremarkable, no threat. "Sit down," said, almost bored. "This does not concern you. We are taking the smart one, not you. Be grateful we have no interest in whatever useless skills you possess." Danny did not sit down. "Let him go," Danny said. His voice was quiet but clear. Laughed, it was a harsh, ugly sound. "Or what? What will you do, little human? There are 4 soldiers here and me. You are alone. No one in this room will help you. No one cares about your friend. So sit down and be silent, or I will have you arrested too." Danny looked around the room. Was right. 40 students, and not one of them would meet his eyes. They were all looking away, pretending this was not happening, hoping they would just leave so things could go back to normal. He understood. He had seen this before. Back home, when the gangs came for someone, people closed their doors and looked the other way. It was safer that way. Getting involved meant getting hurt. Most people chose to survive by being invisible. Danny had made a different choice a long time ago. Danny said softly, "Close your eyes." Looked at him with confusion and fear. "Danny, what are you?" "Close your eyes." Closed his eyes. Danny moved. He crossed the distance to the first soldier in less than 2 seconds. They saw him coming but did not react in time. Danny grabbed his arm and twisted, using the soldier's own momentum against him. There was a sound like a dry branch breaking, and the soldier screamed as his elbow bent the wrong way. The second soldier let go of and reached for his weapon. Danny was faster. He caught the soldier's wrist, pulled him off balance, and slammed his palm into the soldier's shoulder joint. The arm popped out of its socket, and the weapon clattered to the floor. Danny picked it up. The third soldier charged at him. Danny used the second soldier's body as a shield, shoving the injured into his comrade. Both of them went down in a tangle of limbs. Commander drew his sidearm. Danny threw a chair. The chair hit in the chest and knocked his aim off. The shot went wide, burning a hole in the ceiling. Before could fire again, Danny was on him. He grabbed the commander's gun arm, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him face first into the wall. The whole fight had taken less than 40 seconds. The classroom was silent. 40 students stared at Danny with wide eyes and open mouths. Professor had pressed herself against the far wall, her blue face pale with shock. The 4 soldiers were on the ground, groaning and clutching their injuries. Danny pressed his own weapon against the back of the commander's head. "He stays," Danny said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. His knuckles were split and bleeding. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His yellow eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. "Fear. You have made a terrible mistake," hissed. "The hegemony will destroy you for this. They will destroy your entire species." Danny leaned close to the commander's ear and spoke softly. "Maybe, but you will not be around to see it if you do not tell your people to stand down." Security alarms began to wail throughout the station. Danny kept the weapon pressed to his head and waited. Opened his eyes and looked at his friend with something between awe and terror. "Danny," he whispered, "what did you just do?" Danny did not answer. He was too busy trying to figure out the same thing himself. The Consortium Council Chamber was massive. It was built to hold representatives from over 100 species, with seating arranged in a great circle around a central platform. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars above, a reminder that they were all citizens of the same galaxy. Danny sat in the witness section, dressed in a simple dark suit that Ambassador Vance had given him. Sat beside him, pale and nervous. Around them sat other humans, including the 6 stellar Marines that Vance had brought with her. The Marines were the first human military presence ever seen at the Academy, and their presence had caused quite a stir among the alien delegates. The delegation sat on the opposite side of the chamber. Commander was there, his face still bruised from where Danny had slammed him into the wall. He refused to look in Danny's direction. Behind him sat a dozen officials in expensive robes, their yellow eyes scanning the room with barely hidden anger. At the center of the chamber, on a raised platform, sat the 5 members of the tribunal. They represented 5 different species, none of them human, or they were supposed to be neutral judges. Danny hoped that was true. The lead judge, an elder with faded skin, called the session to order. "We are here to determine the facts surrounding the incident in Classroom 17 of the Interstellar Academy. The hegemony has filed charges against the human Danny Carter for assault on military personnel. Earth's Ambassador Vance has filed counter-charges against Commander, and the hegemony for illegal detention and falsification of documents. Both sides will present their arguments." The representative stood. He was an older male with silver scales and a voice like grinding stone. "The facts are simple. Commander was executing a lawful arrest warrant for the human who is suspected of stealing military data from hegemony systems. While executing this warrant, he was attacked by Danny Carter without warning or provocation. 4 soldiers were seriously injured. The commander himself was threatened with his own weapon. This is assault. This is terrorism. We demand justice." He sat down. Ambassador Vance stood. "The facts are indeed simple," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "But they are not the facts my colleague has described. With the tribunal's permission, I would like to present evidence." The lead judge nodded. Vance touched a control on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a document covered in symbols. "This is the arrest warrant that Commander presented when he entered that classroom. It claims that stole military data from hegemony systems and transmitted it to unknown parties. It looks official. It has all the proper seals and signatures." Vance paused. "It is also completely fake." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The representative jumped to his feet. "This is absurd. That document was issued by Hegemony Command." Vance smiled coldly. "I have had my team analyze this document carefully. The security codes are outdated. The authorization signature belongs to an officer who died 3 years ago. And most importantly, the metadata shows that this document was created just 4 hours before the incident, on a terminal located here at the Academy and the Embassy." She changed the display to show a timeline of data. "Has never accessed any system. He has never communicated with anyone in the hegemony. He is a 16-year-old student whose only crime is being exceptionally intelligent." Vance turned to face the tribunal. The arrest warrant was fabricated to justify an abduction. The hegemony did not want to arrest. They wanted to recruit him by force into their military research program. The murmurs grew louder. The representative was speaking rapidly to his colleagues, his voice too low to be heard. But Vance was not finished. "And this is not the first time the hegemony has done this," she continued. "With the tribunal's permission, I would like to call witnesses." The next hour was devastating for the 3 former students came forward, one after another. An engineer who had been taken from the academy 6 years ago and forced to work in a weapons laboratory. A scientist who had been abducted and held for 2 years before escaping. A pilot who had been threatened with harm to his family if he did not cooperate. Each of them told the same story. The fake documents, the sudden arrest, the transport to hegemony space where no one could find them, the years of forced labor before they finally escaped or were released. By the time the last witness finished speaking, the chamber was silent. The delegation looked smaller somehow, their arrogance deflated. Vance stepped back to the central platform. For years, the hegemony has been running an illegal recruitment operation at this academy. They have been preying on young students from species that lack the political power to stop them. They have kidnapped, they have threatened, they have enslaved, and no one did anything about it. She pressed another control, and the holographic display changed to show the security footage from Classroom 17. Now I want you to watch this footage carefully. Watch what happens when Commander enters that classroom. Watch the faces of the other students. The footage played. Danny watched himself stand up in the back of the room. He watched dismiss him. He watched the other students look away as was dragged from his seat. 40 students in that room, Vance said quietly. 40 young people from species that are older and stronger and more advanced than humanity. Not one of them moved. Not one of them spoke. They were afraid, and the hegemony counted on that fear. She paused the footage at the moment before Danny attacked. Then one human stood up, 17 years old, unarmed, alone. He knew he could not win. He knew no one would help him. He knew the consequences would be severe. Vance's voice hardened. But he stood up anyway, because where he comes from, you do not let someone take your people. Not ever. She turned to face the delegation. The hegemony wants to punish him for that. They want to make an example of him. They want to show the galaxy that resistance is pointless. Vance smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. But I think the galaxy is about to learn a different lesson. I think the galaxy is about to learn what happens when you underestimate humans. She faced the tribunal. I ask this council to dismiss all charges against Danny Carter. I ask that Commander and the delegation be charged with conspiracy, kidnapping, and falsification of official documents. And I ask that the hegemony's recruitment operations at this academy be shut down permanently. The lead judge nodded slowly. We will deliberate. The tribunal to a private chamber. The audience waited. Danny sat with his hands folded, staring at the floor, grabbed his arm. What if they do not believe her? Whispered. What if they hand you over anyway? Danny looked at him. Then at least I tried. That is all any of us can do. The tribunal returned after only 20 minutes. The lead judge stood at the central platform and addressed the chamber. The tribunal has reached a decision. All charges against Danny Carter are dismissed. Commander and his soldiers are to be detained pending further investigation. The hegemony's recruitment operations at this academy are suspended indefinitely. This session is closed. The chamber erupted. Danny felt throw his arms around him. He saw Ambassador Vance smiling across the room. He saw the delegation hurrying toward the exit, their faces tight with anger and humiliation. And he saw the other alien students watching him with new eyes. Fear, yes, but also something else. Respect. The honey badger had won. Danny walked through the corridors of the academy like he had walked through them 100 times before, but everything felt different now. The aliens who had once ignored him now watched him as he passed. Some of them moved aside to let him through. Others nodded to him with a strange kind of respect in their eyes. It had been 3 weeks since the tribunal. 3 weeks since the hegemony had been humiliated in front of the entire consortium. 3 weeks since a 17-year-old human from Detroit had become the most talked-about person in the galaxy. Danny did not like the attention. He never had. He preferred to be invisible, to be forgotten, to be the person no one noticed until it was too late. But that was not an option anymore. His face had been broadcast on news channels across 1,000 worlds. His name was known by species he had never even heard of. The honey badger, they called him, the human who fought back. Walked beside him, talking excitedly about his latest engineering project. had recovered quickly from the ordeal. He was young and resilient and had not been physically harmed. The psychological scars were harder to see, but Danny watched for them. He noticed how stayed a little closer to him now, how he looked over his shoulder more often, how he flinched slightly when loud noises echoed in the corridors. But was healing, that was what mattered. They passed a group of students gathered in an alcove. They were massive, towering over Danny by nearly 3 feet. Before the incident, they had barely acknowledged human students existed. Now they straightened up as Danny approached. One of them, a young male with darker skin than the others, raised a hand in greeting. "Carter," he said, his deep voice rumbling through his translator. "Good to see you." Danny nodded back. "Good to see you too." It was a small thing, just a greeting between students, but it meant more than Danny could express. They were a proud species, warriors who valued strength above all else. For them to acknowledge a human as an equal was almost unheard of. But Danny had proven his strength in a way they understood. Further down the corridor, they passed a group of students. The telepaths had always made Danny uncomfortable with their large, dark eyes and their habit of staring. But now one of them, a young female named, stopped and spoke to him. "Danny Carter," she said. Her voice was soft, almost musical. "I have felt the echoes of what you did. Your mind during the fight, it was like nothing I have ever experienced from a human." Danny was not sure how to respond to that. "I did what I had to do." "No," said. "You did what no one else would do. That is different." She hesitated. "My people have always believed humans were ruled by emotion, unstable, dangerous in an unpredictable way, but what I felt from you was not instability, it was focus, loyalty, love." She tilted her head. "We misunderstood you." Danny looked at her for a long moment. Maybe everyone misunderstands everyone at first. Maybe that is just how it works. Smiled slightly. It was an unusual expression on a face, perhaps, but I think we will not make that mistake again. She walked away, her robes flowing behind her. Grinned at Danny. "You know, if you keep collecting fans like this, you are going to need your own security team." Danny shook his head. "I do not want fans. I just want to finish my education and go home." Home looked surprised. "You want to go back to Earth, after all this? You could have a career here. Half the species in the consortium want to recruit you." That was true. In the weeks since the tribunal, Danny had received offers from 6 different governments. They wanted him to train their young warriors. They wanted him for their Special Operations Division. Even the, who usually wanted nothing to do with outsiders, had expressed interest in studying his mind. But Danny had turned them all down. "I have my reasons," he said quietly. They reached the dormitory section, and Danny stopped outside his room, hesitated. "Danny, I never really thanked you properly for what you did." Danny shrugged. "You do not have to thank me. You are my friend, that is all that matters." "But what you risked." "I know what I risked." Danny put a hand on shoulder. "And I would do it again, 1,000 times, because that is what friends do." His eyes were wet. He nodded quickly and turned away, walking to his own room. Danny watched him go, then entered his quarters. The small space was exactly as he had left it. Narrow bed, small desk, window looking out at the stars. But there was something new. A message light was blinking on his terminal. He sat down and opened it. The face of Ambassador Vance appeared on the screen. "Danny," she said, her eyes sharp as ever, "I wanted you to know that Earth's application for a permanent seat on the Consortium Security Council has been approved. We will have a voice in galactic affairs now, equal to species that have been here for." She smiled slightly. "You made that possible. What you did in that classroom changed how the galaxy sees us. We are not just the new species anymore. We are the species that protects its own." The message continued. "I have also arranged for additional human students to be admitted to the Academy next term, twice as many as before, and the Stellar Marines will maintain a permanent presence here from now on. Humanity will never be seen as easy prey again. Vance paused. I know you have turned down all the job offers. I respect that. But I want you to know that whatever you decide to do with your life, you have my support. You have earned the gratitude of your entire species, Danny Carter. I hope you understand that. The message ended. Danny sat in the darkness of his room and thought about his mother. She had died 2 years before the alien ships came. Cancer that the doctors could not cure. She had never lived to see humanity join the stars. She had never known what her son would become. But she had known something. She had seen the fire in him. She had told him to never let anyone put it out. He thought about the honey badger, small, overlooked, fighting things 10 times its size because it did not know how to do anything else. That was what humans were, he realized, not the biggest, not the strongest, not the most advanced, but something else, something that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Loyalty, stubbornness, the absolute refusal to abandon the people they loved. Danny finished his education at the academy. He graduated with honors. He watched accept a position with Earth's new interstellar engineering corps. He said goodbye to the alien students who had become, if not friends, then at least respectful acquaintances. Then he went home. Not to the stars, not to the diplomatic corps or the military or any of the organizations that wanted him. He went back to Detroit, back to the neighborhood where he had grown up, back to the streets that had taught him how to fight. He opened a small school there, just a converted warehouse with mats on the floor and a few punching bags. He taught kids like himself, kids who were small and scared and did not know how to defend themselves, kids who had fire in them but did not know how to use it. He taught them to be honey badgers. Years later, a journalist came to interview him. She was 8 feet tall, and she had to duck to enter his school. She asked him why he had given up a career among the stars to teach in a poor neighborhood on Earth. Danny thought about the question for a long time. Because the galaxy will remember what I did, he said finally. They will put it in their records and their intelligence files. They will warn each other not to underestimate humans. But these kids, he gestured to the students practicing on the mats behind him. They do not have records. They do not have files. They are invisible, and I need them to know that being invisible does not mean being powerless. The journalist watched the children practice. Small humans learning to fight, to protect, to never give up. What do you tell them, she asked, when they are scared, when they think they cannot win? Danny smiled. I tell them the same thing my mother told me, he said. You are a honey badger, you do not know how to quit, so do not try. The journalist nodded slowly. She had learned, like the rest of the galaxy, that some lessons came from the most unexpected teachers. And somewhere in the classified files of 100 alien species, a warning remained. Do not mistake their size for weakness. Do not mistake their kindness for submission. When provoked beyond tolerance, humans do not retreat. They do not negotiate. They become honey badgers. And honey badgers never stop fighting.